you may start to feel, if you're doing this sort of spiritual work and you're meditating consistently, and this is just something that's become very important to you, you might feel an immense desire to just be alone and to be in your own company. And for some people, this might be okay. This might be something that you can very easily accept and something that you can embrace. And for others, there could be a bit of a conflict there. You might have this desire for solitude, but you might also feel a bit conflicted. You might also feel lonely at the same time. And you might be a little bit scared to spend this much time alone, you know? And for me, like, I've always been a bit on the introverted side. I've always, especially being younger, I've always enjoyed more introverted activities. However, I did always want a bit of a balance. You know, I still wanted, it's not that I didn't want or have any friends. I guess I just sort of wanted them on my own terms, under my own conditions, you know. I still am like that to some degree. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you're on the spiritual path, if you're evolving a lot, if your consciousness is raising, if you're find yourself getting closer and closer to enlightenment, you can call it awakening, you need to fully accept and embrace this desire for solitude. It's there for a reason. It's not something that you should run from. It's not something that you should think that there's anything wrong with you. I'm actually going to walk a little bit. It's something that's entirely necessary if this work is really important to you. If you look at all of the great, spiritual masters, or not even spiritualists, just great thinkers of our time, whether it was scientists like Einstein or Nikola Tesla, or whether it was spiritual philosophers like J. Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharshi, Eckhart Tolle, any of these people, Henry David Thoreau, Buddha, Jesus. I'm sure, obviously I didn't know these people personally, but I'm sure that they all embraced a very simple, quiet lifestyle. And their interactions with the world were there to help others. Their interactions, they weren't getting caught up in worldly drama or gossip. Because, you see, the thing is that this kind of stuff is going to pull you back down. If your consciousness is raising, and this happens to me a lot, if your consciousness is raising, if you're feeling more like your true self, your true nature is starting to really shine, but then you get caught up in some family drama, or you get caught up in the wrong crowd, or you're around very negative, sort of glass half empty kind of people who aren't interested in this kind of work, they kind of pull you down. It's going to inhibit your growth a lot. And if you watch me, you probably know how important this kind of work really is. It's the path to true freedom, to truly free yourself from this mind-body idea, from this idea that you're just this measly little person. The spiritual growth, which for most people is going to be a long process, is how you free yourself from this. And being alone for a lot of that time is absolutely crucial. Now, you don't have to live in a cave like Ramana Maharshi did. You don't have to, meditate under a tree for 30 days like Buddha did. You can still have a nice balance, but I think that the key is surrounding yourself with the right people who are also on a similar path, but they don't even necessarily have to be. They just have to be good people, in my opinion, because I have some people in my life that aren't necessarily into spirituality, but they don't tear me down. They don't bring me down. They aren't super negative. For example, I've been traveling a lot lately, and I have a friend that I talk to a lot where we mostly just talk about travel stuff. We talk about travel ideas, and he gives me new ideas, and we share our experiences. And that's really special and important to me. So it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person has to also be meditating every single day and only talk about spirituality. That would probably actually get a bit boring. You would need a break from that. But the idea is to keep relatively high conscious people in your life. You want to avoid people who are, addicts, people who are narcissistic, people who want to manipulate and use others. I think it's fairly obvious at this point who you should have and not have in your life. Now, even if you don't have anybody in your life, just embrace that for a while. When I got really into this path, it took me a while to meet people who were also into this kind of stuff. And most of them I met through the stuff I do on here. It's hard. It's difficult living in this sort of worldly life and being interested in something that most people aren't. It's important to also open yourself up to new experiences, meditation retreats, yoga classes. You'll meet good people and those types of things. But back to what I was saying about being alone, it's entirely necessary. And you might find it a bit challenging at first, but you have to fully embrace and accept it. You have to understand that loneliness won't be alleviated by necessarily anything that you can do externally. Like unless it's a very surface level sort of loneliness, like maybe you just spent a few days, maybe you spent the weekend in your house alone or something and you didn't see anybody. We all need a basic level of human interaction, I think, for the most part. Unless you're very, very highly evolved, like on a Buddha kind of level, but most people aren't there yet. You're going to probably need some form of human interaction. But if you're dealing with a more like existential sort of loneliness, if it's something you've always felt, if you've always felt lonely no matter what, no matter who's around, no matter what you do, it's not going to be alleviated by having a busy schedule, by trying to make a bunch of superficial friends. It's more of a change in perception. You have to see it as an opportunity for growth. You won't regret, like if you're just sitting around feeling sorry for yourself and being upset about the fact that you're alone and just, resisting the uncomfortable feelings that it might bring in the beginning, that's going to be the struggle. It's only going to make it worse. You have to use the time to your advantage. You have to do this by engaging in things like reading books, journaling, meditating, nature walks, yoga practice, anything. It doesn't even have to be related to that kind of stuff. It could be anything that you enjoy doing. And you'll see how valuable, like you want to use the time to your advantage, and you'll see how valuable that time spent alone is when you really witness your own growth. And I'm seeing now, I've spent the majority of my time alone for the past, 4 or 5 years. Pretty much most of my free time I like just to spend, because I really enjoy and I love doing this type of stuff. I enjoy making this kind of content. I enjoy doing my own personal development work. I enjoy my shadow work. I love it. It's what I was literally meant to do. That's way more valuable to me than having, than going out drinking and having a bunch of dumb conversations, talking about people from the past, talking about like times that already ended. And I spent most of my 20s doing that. And I don't like to say I regret it, but I guess I kind of do. I'm glad I woke up when I did, because some people spend their whole life like that. But the point is, use your solitude to your advantage. Be alone for a little bit, be alone for a while, and embrace it and learn to love it. If you can learn to truly be alone, this will alleviate any kind of like neediness that you'll have towards other people, and it makes you shine in a way. Why do you think people were so attracted to people like Jesus and Buddha, Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta, all of these great spiritual masters? Because they didn't care. They didn't need anybody in their life. They were so comfortable in their own skin. They were so comfortable being alone. This is why they attracted large followings of people, because they were so comfortable with who they are. Use the solitude to learn how to do that. And it might take some time, and it might be uncomfortable. You might have to deal with a lot of feelings of discomfort. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it. One thing I recommend is that I used to do when I was first dealing with this, is I used to like book little Airbnb trips for like even just 2 or 3 days, like for a weekend or something, just completely alone somewhere. And yeah, it might be scary if it's not something you've ever done. But think about it. If you can do that, if you can go take a trip somewhere completely by yourself, you're completely free. You don't have to be dependent on anybody for your own happiness. You can do anything you want in this world when you can stand on your own 2 feet like that. There's just like such a beautiful side to loneliness and solitude. I don't even like using the word lonely because it sounds negative, but you can, that's the thing. You want to sort of switch. Instead of looking at it as loneliness, change the perception and view it as solitude. That you can grow from. And eventually what happens, I think it was like Jim Carrey who said once you're alone for a while, it gets addictive. It really does. It really gets addictive. And then I think that's why my desire for solitude is growing so much every single day, because you realize how peaceful and beautiful it really is. But you also want to be careful not to use it as a way of like avoiding problems and avoiding the world, because it does happen. It has happened to me too. It's more about just being selective about who and what you spend your time doing. Obviously, we have certain responsibilities, certain family responsibilities. We might have to deal with certain people and situations that we don't like. But I'm saying, if it's up to you, if you could make the choice, choose to spend your time doing things that are important to you and that help your own growth. And you'll come to find that, most people you're going to meet, I think I would say, well, let me say many people that you meet on a daily basis, they're just kind of falling victim to society and societal expectations and sort of playing this role of what they think they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to be. And most people aren't capable of spending time alone, truly spending time alone. Not just sitting around being depressed about being alone, but really taking advantage of it and loving it. I highly recommend it. It also comes down to your personality type. And, if you're just naturally way more extroverted, then this probably won't make sense to you. Probably won't appeal to you. There are just some people who can't embrace it. But I would say that most of the people probably aren't watching my sort of content. So if you are more on the introverted side, learn to really love your time alone. Learn to really embrace it. Learn to see it as something valuable, because you'll miss it when it's gone. There's a lot of people who, they end up maybe having kids or something, or they find themselves in some situation where they can't be alone, and then they realize how valuable it really was and how valuable it really is. My advice would be, if you want it, is to come up with a few activities that you enjoy doing solo and have regular time every week that you spend towards those activities. And try not to think too much. Try not to think. Loneliness is more so just in your head. It all comes down to thinking. It all comes down to wishing that things were different than they were. I wish I had people around. Or it could be more feelings of discomfort if you're not used to it, maybe. Maybe you feel awkward being in public alone or something like that. But you got to kind of switch the mind off a little bit. Learn to just sit with the feelings, let them come, let them go. You can use the letting go technique for letting go of feelings of loneliness, definitely. I have. But yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to say about that, is to just remember that it's a change in perception. It's not necessarily a change in lifestyle. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know below what you think.